What up? Random Rockers. January catch-up time. Let's talk about some albums, starting here with Caligula'S Horse, Charcoal Grace. They are a progressive death... No, they're not death metal. They're just progressive metal. Not quite genty or anything. They like kind of draw some influences, some more similar in the styles of like Haken, a little bit of Leprous, a little bit of the more lesser extreme bands, though to some extent maybe even BT Bam up to a point, but more closer to the lesser extremes moments they've had, even if some people didn't like those moments, but they have that there. And I even get some Tesseract vibes specifically with how they did the suite of the title track suite of this record being in the middle of this record. And I get the complaints, notes, reviews gives for this record in terms that he thinks the suite and the final track on this record, which is, give me a second, which is Mute. Even though I like the way it ends, I understand wanting to change the suite in that a little bit. But yeah, the first two tracks, The World Breathes With Me and the long 10-minute World Breathes With Me, and Golem are really solid. Golem's a really good heavy one. I even like the acoustic portion of the third portion of the Charcoal Grace Suite Vigil very much, even to the point of how it perfectly leads into the final one, Give Me Hell. Overall, yeah, this is going to be a horn. This one is definitely at least a very light to solid horns for sure. Not quite strong horns masterclass, but but I understand those that would, given this was considered a return to form in comparison to the last record. So, yeah, moving on to Announce the Apocalypse. Experience Machine. This is technically a death thrash band mostly, but somehow they went a little more progressive thrash. And I get some, like, the way they handle the segue portions that involve the storytelling and narrations and stuff very much gives me some, like, Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime. The actual one that matters vibes. Not the Jeff Tate and Friends Part 2 thing. Thank God. And it works really, really well, I think. And I can't wait to see what they do next with this thing. Because I think my favorite track, and I think for a lot of people, oh, for Pete's sake, it's not on here. Is I Am the Pariah, I think, is what it's called. Something like that. Correct me in the comments, but yeah, I loved this thing very, very much. I think it's in here somewhere, damn it. I should have it in here somewhere, but it's not showing up. Whatever. We'll go with that for now. But, yeah, I enjoyed this record. It's very good progressive thrash. Even has some crossover thrashy moments as well. And overall, yeah, I actually consider this one of the more light to solid horns potential masterclass here. Potential, but not quite there just yet. They're getting there, it seems. And I look forward to what this band does next, if they can pull off something like this again. Or at least come moderately close to it. Greg Puciato, FC5. And this is an interesting EP that's just, kind of feels like him trying to bring in some other ideas from his other solo projects and maybe some things that didn't quite come into play on records from his other projects, whether it be Kill or Be Killed, Dillinger Escape Plan, and Yet Alone recently Better Lovers. I feel like this is him kind of doing this. It's definitely more chill than Better Lovers for sure. At points for sure, but it does have some sporadically hard moments. I do get like vibes closer into Dillinger's One of Us Is the Killer a lot. So if you for some reason liked that record, maybe some sprinkles of the previous two albums prior to that, then I think you'll like this. Is that? And yes, that would include Ironworks. But if you liked Ironworks up to that point, One of Us the Killer, You'll probably get a lot out of this for sure. And what he's recently put out with his last solo record, that was more like a grunge, 80s, 90s alternative worship. That felt a perfect circle. It's definitely good. Upon Stone, Dead Mother Moon. This is a debut melodic death metal record that somewhat combines elements of Swedish, of the classic sweet Gothenburg sound, with some more American-based bands like your Black Dahlia Murders and other stuff like that. And honestly, I like it, but I kind of like it, but it feels kind of derivative to me a little bit. And the only time I liked it that might have still been derivative to me, sadly, was the bonus track for me. I wanted to like this thing more, and I'm sure other people who are interested in melodic death metal are getting something more out of it than me, because the only time I liked this was the moment they kind of went in flames on the bonus track, and I just haven't felt like coming back to it as much. I will give it at least an honorable mentions, but I don't know if I'll give it any higher. I at least give it a solid, keep it light to maybe strong, keep it real, but that's about as much as I can give it. Funeral Procession, Instill Silence. I didn't get a chance to go back and like really dive into this record as much, but I believe this is a very good debut that kind of has definitely like progressive death, if I'm not mistaken, kind of leaning towards black metal in the ways of like early Opeth. Like we're talking pre-Blackwater Park Opeth, yet there's still some elements of Blackwater Park in there too. So it's almost like in that weird, all the earlier Opethy stuff with some hint of it, leaning into like some Catatonia stuff, and then some. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad for debut, but I just haven't come back to it as much either, like I said with the last record with the Upon Stone, but it's definitely, for a debut, also definitely makes me want to perk my ears up and see what they do next. I'll give it a light to solid, keep it real in this case. Lord Dying. Let me find this damn thing. Clandestine Transcendence. I wasn't sure. It's like, if you liked, I feel like this is what if happened if somehow you managed to combine the early sludgier elements of Mastodon and Baroness and mix them in with some of the more experimental, more hard rock leaning tendencies of both of those bands somehow simultaneously amongst some other possible projects. Apparently they were in that stoner, that sludge doom style to start with, and then they started experimenting on their previous album, and this is they follow up where they double down. And once I finally got a good chance to listen to it with in-ears as opposed to like listening to stereo, I started to love this thing, especially by the point of I am nothing and I am everything, and it just kind of... The first one, and it does have these moments that make me feel almost bordering epic doom in places, and some of that more progressive stonery metal and rock elements that you would expect from Baroness, currently out of Baroness and stuff. But yeah, this is definitely like going to be the... I think I wound up getting even more out of it than the new Baroness record, actually. Yeah, we're going to give that a horns up. Definitely light to strong. Could be masterclass, given time. Now this was some fun. Lucifer 5 by Lucifer. Basically, if you ever wondered if Heart took more influence from Black Sabbath instead of Led Zeppelin, though they still, in that sense of being that kind of more heavy rock aspect of Black Sabbath at least, that sort of leans closer to doom but isn't quite there. They started off that way, apparently, from what I've heard, but they wound up going the more heavy rock direction, maybe incorporating more of the Heart and Led Zeppelin-y stuff, and it works really well, and the lady's front woman, who is pictured here in this album cover, is got some very tasty vocals that does remind me of the Wilson Sisters a little bit. Really good stuff. I'd say give it definitely, if you're into wanting to know what Heart is with Black Sabbath, definitely give it a shot. I've yet to hear the early releases to say whether or not this is their best, but I can at least say for sure Light to Solid Horns Up for sure. It's a fun release. Distances Abstruse, or is it the other way around? Yeah, it's the band is Distances, the album's Abstruse. They're a post-metal act of the more classic variety that is rooted more closer to doom, sludge, and stoner. But I get way more post-hardcore vibes from it too. I want to like this, especially in the growls. I want to like this thing more. But, and I love the sound of this, but I'm bummed that the vocals are a little too back in the mix and can't join the party like they should. That's my only complaint about this thing, but other than that, the music is actually pretty good, and I understand why he put this top tier amongst January metal philosophy. So, moving on to, speaking of another recommendation around the time of January, Captured King's Regicide. They are a progressive death metal band, but definitely less progressive pretentious. And hell, I get more. Basically, if Alter Bridge, Tremonti had, and Tremonti's style of like that alternative metalish kind of a thing, like very it's more progressive alt metal in sound, but has death growls going on. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of taking a death and roll approach in terms of their progressive death metal. Not nearly as much as another band that came out earlier this week that I will eventually get to talking about, but yeah, I think this is a debut, I believe, and a lot of it's more instrumental than death growls. Though there is, I think, a couple cleans maybe on this one, unless I'm confusing with the other record I was referring to, but yeah, most of it reminds me more of the Alter Bridge instrumental track that they sometimes play live. That's hard to find a studio version of. That's, I guess, something involving avocado, taco, salad, surprise, or something of some, you know, like Alter Bridge fans, you know what I mean if you're hearing this. But yeah, if you liked Alter Bridge and them and wanted a little more death growls in the vocals or wanted something more like that instrumental track I mentioned, yeah, you should definitely check this out for sure. Definitely way more rock and metal. More in the rock and metal portions of progressive metal than the progressive side that tends to be seemingly more pretentious. Let's put it that way. And then finally, Alkaline Trio, Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs. Their 10th studio album, if the X didn't make that very clear on this. It's the Roman numeral. Yeah! I'm going to say, Green Day got outshined last month by this thing. And the opening track should make that, opening track of Hot for Preacher should make that very clear. Hell, and I needed to check this out for the tea of, you know, what happened with poor old Matt Skiba's eventual leave of absence in Blink-182. What was he going to do next? And from what I heard from the lead off title track, yeah. Which I think after that the album does slightly lose a little bit, but not in the way that's weirdly constructed, I guess you could say, looking back on that Green Day album. But yeah, I think if most people would say Alkaline Trio, yeah, this record, if Hot for Preacher didn't make it clear, they still had it in them to pull some pretty hard goth rock, power punk inspired pop punk. This is the album, man. Just holy shit. Like seriously, that riff on Hot for Preacher fucking slaps like a motherfucker. Oh my god. And it's just a fun pop punk record too. So like that for your 2000s nostalgia, this will definitely fill that void just as much, if not even way more than the recent Green Day, and dare I even go as far as to say the recent Blink-182 record, possibly. It's debatable, I understand, but it's possible. Yeah, I'm strong, keep it real, 2 strong horns up. Don't know about Masterclass yet, but yeah, I was impressed with this. Genuinely impressed with this. I think their previous album prior to that, while he was still in Blink, Mesquite was still in Blink, might have been pretty good. But yeah, anyways, what in the, like, that's all the albums we've got here that I checked out in January that might have missed talking about. But what did you guys think of any of these albums I talked about, whether it be Alkaline Trio and all these other bands? Leave a comment below, let me know, and as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you in the next video. And and by the time I'm watching this, hopefully we'll see how the Chiefs do, or the Niners, or whatever, if anybody even cares at this point, since it's literally 2020 all over again, which is even more ironic given this election year is literally the same election as 2020. What the fuck is going on? Anyways, take care, y'all.